Have you ever felt like you woke up one day and your face was just falling, or you didn't look rested and you just couldn't get enough sleep to regain that youthful, glowing appearance? Well, I have some answers for you, and if you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe below. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Weinstein. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, and today I'm going to go over the science of aging skin, what happens to our faces as we age, why that happens, and what you can do about it. The first thing to think about is that aging is not a choice. There are both external and internal factors that come into play when we think about aging. External factors can accumulate and add up, so things like cumulative sun exposure, UV irradiation along the same lines, pollution, environment, stress, health, all of these things can contribute to your external signs of aging and how quickly your face and your body ages. Now, those internal factors are a little different. These tend to be inherited. So they're related to the physiology of your body, your genetics, and your skin type. We actually know that darker skinned individuals, so specifically African American and Hispanic patients, will actually age about 10 years slower than their Caucasian counterparts. So that's one intrinsic factor that we just can't control. So let's talk about the differences between a youthful face and an aging face. So we call the youthful face in dermatology having a triangle of youth, and that means that there are high cheekbones, a well-defined jawline, and full lips, a full mid-face. Everything is full, there's not a lot of sagging, it's very well defined. An aged face we define as having an inverted triangle, where you're gonna lose some fat and notice some sagging in the cheeks, a less well-defined jawline, and also having some fullness under the chin. And this is really when people start to appreciate those aging changes, typically around age 40 in our Caucasian patients and a little bit later in our darker skinned individuals. But it's important to note that facial aging is not all about gravity and sagging. There's anatomic changes that come into play that contribute to the look of an aged face. And so it's important to understand these anatomic changes, especially when you talk about trying to do things like injectables and lasers and skincare, so that you really know what you're targeting. A lot of patients come in and they say, oh, my eyes look more tired, I'm starting to develop jowls, and it's important to understand why these changes are happening. So first off, there are bony changes that are occurring as we age. And some people notice the development of dark circles or hollowing around the eyes, and that's because that bony orbit actually widens. One other thing that happens is that the orbital septum, which is a nice sort of bouncy layer of tissue that holds back some of that fat that's cushioning your orbit, will actually start to get weak, and in some cases that fat can protrude through the orbital septum as we lose collagen and contribute not only to that tired sort of dark circle under the eye look, but also that fullness. So sometimes people will complain of bags under the eye. That's because of that orbital septum, which is actually loosening and losing collagen and elasticity, and those fat pads are protruding through. The next thing that happens as we move down the face is that our maxilla, the area of the upper jaw that supports our teeth, actually loses volume and becomes shorter and smaller, and we get that protrusion of the face. So the nasolabial folds look a little bit heavier and you look a little less full here. That's why the face sort of starts to curve under. The mandible, which is the lower part of our jaw, will actually become shorter and smaller. So it's less able to hold the skin in place around it. So we think about it as a dinner table where you're draping a nice tablecloth and it fits nice and snug. And then over time, that dinner table kind of shrinks and that tablecloth is not going to fit as snug. And so similarly with the skin, it tends to sort of sag and hang over the jawline because we're losing bone there. So next, let's think about the fat pads in our face. So we have layers and layers of fat actually in our face, especially in our cheeks. And as we get older, especially if you are an athletic type or you work out a lot, or if you just lose weight as you get older, you're also going to lose that weight in your face. And I'm sure many of you have gone through weight fluctuations and noticed that the weight not only comes off your body, but your face also looks a little bit more hollow. And so there are fat pads, specifically this malar fat pad that supports sort of the apple of your cheek, will start to descend and look a little bit heavy in this nasolabial area. And that's why we start to develop sort of that flat look of the upper cheek area and some heaviness around the smile lines or the nasolabial fold. And I'll come back to that because a lot of people want filler in the nasolabial fold, but that's not actually the appropriate place to put it to resolve that fullness and folding here. It's because of the descent of the malar fat pad. So you actually want to place the filler a little bit higher to lift and reposition the tissue. So in summary, the bony structure of our face changes, which affects the way that the skin sort of drapes over it. So it's important to understand all those changes in addition to the fat pads that are shifting in our face. And lastly, the muscles in our face will actually atrophy, which means weaken. And when muscles weaken, they lengthen. So a very obvious example of this is the distance between the tip of your nose, which we call the columella, and the cupid's bow actually lengthens and flattens over time with age, and that's why you notice that there's a longer space in this area as you get older, and also your upper lip isn't as perky and everted as it used to be. Sometimes it starts to sort of roll under, and that's when we turn to things like skin tightening and lip filler to help to recreate that structure that we had when we were younger. So now that we talked about the deeper structural changes that happen in the face, let's talk about what happens on the skin itself. So there are lots of different things that can happen on your skin, including the development of brown spots. So those are typically what we might call age spots. The scientific term for that is solar lentigines, and these can develop from cumulative sun exposure over time. And you might notice that there's more brown spots if you're looking in a mirror on the left side of your face than on the right, and that's because the left side is your driving side. So we tend to develop more cumulative sun damage on the left side of your face. There have actually been studies that look at truck drivers who obviously spend a lot of time in the road and a lot of time in their car, and they've noticed that on the left side of their face, they have way more signs of aging than on the right, and we can show you a picture of that right here. And so in addition to developing brown spots on the face, we can also develop more red spots. These might come in the form of dilated blood vessels, or the scientific name for that are telangiectasias. We might develop more signs of rosacea or redness and flushing. And this can also be genetic, but typically might be also due to cumulative sun exposure and thinning of the skin and UV damage. So we get red spots and brown spots, and then of course we get fine lines and wrinkling on the face. And this is due to loss of collagen and elastin in the skin as we get older. As early as age 26, actually, we stop producing collagen. And so a lot of things that we do to target the aging process have to do with stimulating new collagen and elastin so that when we're making facial expressions, we're not consistently creasing the skin, contributing to etched lines on the skin, especially in those areas that are very mobile. Some of you might also notice some fine lines and wrinkling on the cheeks, or we call these those radial cheek lines that come from smiling and that constant movement on the cheek as well. So these are normal things that happen on the skin over time as we age. One other thing that's important to point out on the skin are the lines around the mouth. So these are called perioral lines or smoker's lines. A lot of people come in concerned about smoker's lines or these vertical lines that develop around the mouth. There are many reasons for these lines to develop. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a smoker or if you've smoked your whole life. They develop primarily because of the way you move your mouth, so facial movement. The perioral area is a highly mobile area, and so those lines will develop whether you're a smoker or not. Other movements that you might think about that could contribute to the development of these vertical lines around the mouth are sipping through straws often, pursing your lips. If you are a vocalist or a singer and you have to make very specific movements with your mouth, that can contribute to the lines too. We also see it with musicians or people who play the clarinet or the flute, which also requires that pursed lip motion. And so those are other reasons why you might develop perioral lines, not necessarily because you're a smoker. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe below and stay tuned for more videos. Let me know what you want to hear about next.